Hello there, ladies and gentlemen. This is Orphan Last, aka Skylar Madison, and today I'm going to go ahead and give you guys some beginner level information about how to draw in two-point perspective. But first, I kind of need to talk about what is one-point perspective and two-point perspective, what makes them different from one another. And people seem to get really confused about this. So let's go into Blender, or at least I will for the purposes of this video for just a short while. This is just a presentation. You don't need to necessarily know anything about Blender in order to follow along with this video. Just look at what's going on the screen and listen to what I'm saying about it and all that. Okay, with that out of the way, let's get into this, okay? So we see a cube right here. This cube is in one-point perspective. How do we know that? Well, this face right here is facing us 100%. It is parallel with the positioning of our two eyeballs. It's collinear with the alignment of our eyes, I guess, is how I could say that. It's parallel with our face, or the camera. That's a good way to put it as well. Okay? So there will always, inside of one-point perspective, there will always be one face that is facing us. But what about all the other faces? Well, all the other faces are going to be going towards a singular vanishing point. Let me try to do this at least a little bit presentably. Okay, so the vanishing point's going to be somewhere around there-ish. Okay, so this means that every single face, other than the front face, is going to be going something like that. Okay? Now, of course, if you don't have your vanishing point to the left of your box, it doesn't really matter. Or if it's below your box, it still doesn't really matter that much. Regardless of where your vanishing point is, all the other faces are going to be pointed towards that vanishing point. Those faces are going away from you, okay? So in this case, when I move the camera, these faces are pointed away from you, going that direction. Same thing here. If I kind of look up at the box a little bit, these faces are going away from us that direction, okay? And I can kind of prove it to you just by drawing out these lines, okay? So they probably collide somewhere around here, this region right here, okay? And that's the vanishing point about right there. Okay, now this is a little bit limiting, but like you have this full range of motion with one-point perspective. You can draw a box with all of these different sorts of views. Now you can picture yourself as looking down, where the vanishing point is literally down, or up. You can picture the vanishing point as being horizontal, which is great. There's a lot of versatility to one-point perspective, but it's still got its limitations. So this is where two-point perspective comes in, where you do this with the box. Okay, now we have this face and we have this face. Okay, so this is obviously the left face and this is obviously the right face. Okay, and you have the top face up here, and internally, if we continue this line going down and then continue these lines towards the two vanishing points, we also have the bottom face. Now this may seem like, well, no duh, but let me just rotate a little bit here, okay? Back to one-point perspective, alright? We originally had the front face with one-point perspective, or at least this is how I've been referring to things inside of my videos. We've had the top face, and then, the left and right faces, okay? And of course, we have the bottom face as well, okay? So notice that there is no front face with two-point perspective, okay? What we have instead is the front edge, okay? That's what we have instead. So we're going to be focusing on edges. So the difference from one-point perspective right here to two-point perspective is just a rotation of how you're looking at an object, a three-dimensional object. That's all it is, okay? But while one-point perspective has this full range of motion that you can do with it, where you can draw a box at any position within this region like that, just so long as this front face is facing us. While one-point perspective has that, what's interesting is that it doesn't have nearly as many limitations. This would qualify as two-point perspective. This would qualify as two-point perspective. This would qualify as two-point perspective. So with this, well, now we're kind of going into 1 point perspective. But there's much more. So like I have this full range of motion that I can do, a full range of places that I could put a 2 point perspective box in 2 point perspective. I could draw a box in any position here, like that. I can rotate it more, and I have this all still qualifies as 2 point perspective. I can rotate it around it even more, and this even qualifies as 2 point perspective. Basically what I'm getting at is that 1 point perspective only allows you to really move the horizon line up and down. That's it. That's all that 1 point perspective allows you to do. With 2 point perspective, you're able to rotate the cube around quite a bit more and move the horizon line up and down quite a bit. So it has more versatility than 1 point perspective. With 2 point perspective, here's what we need to notice. Okay? So what we will do, sometimes it helps to draw out actually the bottom face. It's because it helps you be able to see a spatial relationship between other objects that might be inside of the scene. Such as if you have another cube out here and another cube out here, you know, it might be nice to know how much of a spatial relationship it takes up on the ground before you draw it. That sort of thing. But most of the time when I start out, when I start drawing an image in 2 point perspective, what I'm doing is I draw the front edge, okay? The edge that is closest to us, closest to the viewer, alright? And then I go ahead and I extend a line that goes to either my left or my right vanishing point, alright? And then, you know, I extend another line that goes out towards my vanishing point over here. Now, the vanishing point is off canvas, but you can see that this face is going, like it's obviously going like that, away from us. It's three-dimensionally going away from us, diagonally towards a vanishing point somewhere out here. Okay? And then we have the right face right here, and then we have the bottom face right here, extending out towards the right vanishing point, which of course is going off canvas, at least in this case. Okay? And you can actually see that it's actually going away from us, like so. Okay? So we have the makeup of everything that we need in order to make the left and right face. Now, the front edge is a vertical line, okay? And most of the time, it's going to be parallel with your left and right side of your canvas, okay? With 1 point perspective, when you're drawing a cube in 1 point perspective, that front face has lines that are parallel with the top, bottom, left, and right. And you're going to be freehanding a bunch of lines that are parallel with the top, left, and right side of your canvas. But with 2 point perspective, the only lines that are not going towards a vanishing point that you are going to be freehanding are straight up and down. Lines that are going up and down. Every other line is going towards a vanishing point. So this edge right here is going to go towards a left vanishing point. This point right here, this intersection right here, is going to go towards a right vanishing point. Alright? And so right where this collision is, okay, if you were to draw a line that goes straight down and continue a line from this intersection right here, continue a line from this intersection towards a vanishing point, towards the left vanishing point, and this intersection, if you were to continue it towards the right vanishing point, you would have the transparency of the cube. And if I press Alt-Z, we can see I'm not too far off. The edge that actually exists is like right there. So yeah, I mean, I'm fairly accurate with every line that I've drawn. So let's go ahead and jump into Affinity Photo and kind of talk about perspective a little bit more, okay? So first of all, we need to start talking about creating the grid, alright? Now, I'm going to create a rectangle, okay? By going over here and selecting the rectangle tool. Alright, and I'm just going to go ahead and create a really thin rectangle just like that, and I'm actually going to get rid of the stroke, okay? So this circle right here is the stroke, and this circle right here represents the fill. Let me give it a red fill and get rid of the stroke, okay? So I'm going to name this object in the layers panel horizon line. Alright, and let's go ahead and just move this horizon line somewhere just slightly above halfway on the canvas, okay? And now we need to create a double star tool right here, okay? And I'm just going to press Control Shift and click and drag. Now, first of all, the first thing that we need to pay attention to is it's got a fill. We don't want it to have a fill, so let's get rid of that. But we want it to have a stroke. So I click on the stroke, but the problem is when I press spacebar, that looks pretty thin. So I'm going to click here, and I'm just going to go ahead and thicken this up a bit. That looks good, and let's give it a blue color, all right? So when I press spacebar, I can see it's got a nice blue color. Alright, so point radius, let's dial that all the way up. Inner radius, dial it all the way down. Point radius, let's dial that all the way up. Alright, excellent. So now pressing Control Shift and clicking and dragging, I can go ahead and make this thing really big. Now, this vanishing point needs to rest on the horizon line, okay? Now, your vanishing point and your vanishing points resting on them, that is your camera angle. Eventually I'll talk more about that, but you'll see what I mean eventually. So I'm going to just have this right vanishing point be a little bit off canvas, and I'm just going to click and drag that a little bit more. Yeah, that looks good. Press spacebar, everything looks good. Okay, so now I'm going to Control, click, and drag on this, and then press Shift, and I'm just going to put this vanishing point right there. Okay, right on the edge of the canvas, just for my sake. Technically, I guess, like as a beginner and everything, you can go ahead and place them just about anywhere, but the closer and closer your vanishing points get to each other. If they are really, really close to each other, you're going to wind up with something really wonky, okay? Something that just doesn't look right. And so that's something that you just need to be a little bit careful of. And so what I'm going to do with the left vanishing point is I'm just going to go ahead and change its color to a red. I know the horizon line was red, but it doesn't really matter. It doesn't need to be a different color. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to grab the horizon line. I'm going to press Control J, and I'm going to drag this copy of it all the way up on the stacking order. I'm going to change its color to being something like a purple. Let's go with purple. And I'm going to rotate this holding Shift, and it's going to say 90 degrees, okay? At 90 degrees, everything's good. Make sure that it has a purple color. Yep, that looks good. And I'm going to go ahead and click and drag this out towards the edge of the canvas. It looks like I'm just going to press Control C and then Control V and then drag it out a little bit, and then press Control J, drag it out just a little bit, and then press Control J a bunch of times, okay? That seems like it worked out pretty well. One thing that I don't like is just how spaced out all of these perspective lines are, okay? So really quick here, I'm going to change that up a little bit. So I'm going to grab all of the horizon line layers on my stacking order, and I'm going to put them in a group. And by doing that, I'm just going to click on the top, horizon line, whatever thing, and then scroll all the way down, pressing Shift, and clicking on the bottom one that says horizon line that still remains at the top of the stacking order-ish, and press Control G, okay? And I'm going to name this group that I just created Verticals, all right? And I'm just going to turn off the verticals really quick here. So with the right vanishing point, this is what I'm going to do first, okay? I'm going to press Control J, and I'm just going to rotate this just a bit to give myself a little bit, just a few more extra lines in here, all right? That's going to help out quite a bit. And so the left vanishing point, I'm going to press Control J and do the same thing. Just give myself a little bit of extra lines in here. So that helps me out quite significantly. I have a lot more stuff to work. So now I'm going to select all of this, press Control G, double click on it on this group, and call this Perspective Grid. All right. Really quick here, I need to activate my verticals, and that looks good. Let me go ahead and close down the group and lower the opacity of it. Okay, so now I'm going to create a new layer. I'm going to call it red, and I'm going to go to my adjustment layers, and I'm going to create a gradient map, and I'm just going to dump it right into the red layer. I'm going to press Control J on the red layer, so I have two of them. I'm going to name it blue, and I'm going to open up the blue layer and go to the gradient map inside of it, and I'm going to change this leftmost little node here. I'm going to change it to a blue color, and that should be good. And then I'm going to create a new layer as well, and I'm going to call this Sketch. Alright, so when I select the red layer and I have a black color selected and I have my brush tool, I'm drawing in red. And you can actually see that I have black, and yet I'm drawing in red. I select the blue layer, I still have black selected right here, and yet I'm instantly drawing in blue. And then with the sketch layer, I'm drawing in black. Alright, so this helps me out quite significantly. So with the red and blue layers, I'm just going to select them both, and I'm going to lower their opacity down to, let's say, something like 50. Okay, so that's what the blue layer is going to look like, and that's what the red layer is going to look like. So let's go ahead and start drawing in 2-point perspective, okay? And I'm going to start with the red layer, okay? And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to draw a vertical line, just like this, and then I'm going to use the bottom portion of that line, okay? And I'm going to extend it out towards the left vanishing point. And then at the top of this line, I'm going to extend it out towards the left red vanishing point over here, okay? And then I'm going to go ahead and draw a vertical line, and this is our left face right there. Okay, and so now I can go ahead and at the bottom of the front edge here, I can now go ahead and extend this out towards the right vanishing point, which is blue, and I can go ahead and just extend this out however far I want, really. And then at this intersection, let's go ahead and do the same thing, extend it out towards the right blue vanishing point. Alright, I just want to have a really long box at this point. So this is our right face, okay? And of course this is our front edge right here. Alright, so let's pull out the red layer. And so what we can see really quick here is that we have the bottom right here. We already have two sides of our bottom face already created. And so, you know, we could go to our red layer and extend this far edge on the right face out a little bit, and we can go ahead and extend on the far edges of the left face. We can go ahead and extend these out towards the right vanishing point. Where these bottom faces, where these intersect right here, is where we're going to draw a line that goes straight up, okay? And that is the far edge, all right? And so then we just can go ahead and go like that if we want. And it doesn't really always matter what order you draw these in. Sometimes depending on the situation, drawing them in different order will help you be able to understand what's going on a little bit better. So you're going to be sometimes drawing the bottom face to it first, completely first. So the bottom face will be, in this case, a line that is drawn out from the left vanishing point, and then a line drawn out from the right vanishing point, and then where you decide to end that, you go ahead and go towards the left vanishing point, and then you join these together with going towards the right vanishing point. That is the bottom face. That's basically how to draw a piece of paper laying down on a flat desk in 2-point perspective. All right?
There's no freehanding with a flat bottom face to an object in 2-point perspective.
So at this point, you would go to all four edges and you would draw them going straight up. All right? And then you just go ahead and decide how tall you want these to be. So if I wanted this to be this tall, I can extend this out towards the left vanishing point and extend this out towards the right vanishing point. Now notice that once I have the front edge drawn out, I'm just going directly towards drawing a line towards the left and right vanishing point to it, in relationship to it. Okay, being able to recognize what is your front edge is pretty helpful, okay? And then from this right far corner of the right face, like since it's the right face, it's going to go left, okay, towards the left vanishing point. Okay, so this is the left face, so it needs to go right, and that's how you close it up. All right, so you can draw a box in drawing each face in whatever order is helpful for that specific situation. Okay,
you're not obligated to draw them in any particular order all the time, because sometimes you might throw yourself off if you get too used to drawing the boxes in 1-point perspective or 2-point perspective in any one particular order.
Okay, I kind of want to stress that, because some people, they say, oh, well, I just don't learn that way. I have to learn things in a specific order. This line connects to this line.
No, we're not talking about drawing lines. What we're talking about here is doing 3D modeling on a 2D surface, only instead of the computer doing all of the thinking, you're doing all of the thinking. That's what drawing in perspective is.
So if you're thinking in terms of lines, like what line goes first, what line goes second,
you're thinking wrong.
You are kind of sculpting a three-dimensional object on a two-dimensional surface. That's how you should be thinking when you're drawing in 1 point, 2 point, and 3 point perspective, as well as with any type of curvilinear perspective. So now I'm just going to go ahead and use my sketch layer, and I'm just going to kind of flesh these out a little bit. Alright, so the main focus that we want to pay attention to inside of this video is just drawing a lot of boxes and getting used to doing it too. Alright, so maybe we might want to have a box that is right here, okay? But let's say we want it to end at the same point as this box. Well, that's easy. All you need to do is draw out a line where this box ends at the bottom of it, okay? This whole bottom portion of it right there, okay? All you need to do is draw a line that goes towards the left vanishing point or to the right vanishing point, depending on what type of box you want. Like if you want to draw a box right here next to it, that's in that situation, to the left of it, then you're going to draw a line that goes towards the left, all right? So once we extend that line out towards the left vanishing point, we can go ahead and use that line, and we can go ahead and just draw out the bottom face, and that helps out quite a bit. So we draw the front edge right here, and if we want it to be taller, then we can go ahead and do that. And let's say this is how tall I want it to be. I'm going to go ahead and extend this out towards the right vanishing point and extend this out towards the left vanishing point. And now I'm going to go ahead and just go up with it. So notice how I oftentimes, like, I either draw out a lot of the time the front edge first, or I wind up drawing the bottom face first a lot of the time, okay? So, but the front face is a point of reference that helps me out, because a lot of the time, after you draw out a front face, it's either an arrow that's pointing down-ish sort of thing, you know, like picture an arrow pointing down. It looks like an arrow pointing down, or if it's up here, if I have a front face here, I immediately use my perspective lines going towards the vanishing points, and, you know, I have an arrow that's pointing up, okay? So that helps me out. The distinguishing what is the front edge helps. Okay, so now I'm going to use the sketch layer, and I'm just going to go ahead and flesh this out. And so now if I start deactivating layers, we can kind of see what we're doing here. Now, most of my sketches are about this messy or clean, depending. This would qualify as just being a sketch at this point. A lot of refinement would have to happen in order for me to consider this a finished drawing sort of situation. All right. So let's say I want another box way out here, okay? And I want it to be just as tall and just as and be on the same sort of flush region-ish as this box right here, okay? Basically, let me just use the lasso tool and get rid of all of my blue lines really quick here. And basically, I can extend a line right at the bottom edge of this box towards the left vanishing point, all right? And right here, I can go ahead and extend this top edge towards the vanishing point as well. But I need to make sure that I get it done right. Okay, so that's approximately right, okay? So I'm going to use the red layer here, and, you know, I can just go ahead and do that, and just use those lines to represent the top and bottom of this box, all right? And that helps me make sure that different objects are the same size, especially if they happen to be related to each other. Now, when are two objects related to each other? That's a good question. Well, let's say let's say this is a bench. Okay, let's say it's at a park, and this is some sort of public bench. Okay, if this is some sort of public park bench sort of thing, then you will definitely want to have this be the same size, okay? And you might even want it to be aligned perfectly. with the top and bottom of it. Now, if I want this to be just as long, going towards the right vanishing point, I would just go ahead and use this bottom edge and just kind of make sure that it extends out towards the right place. Okay, so that would be the bottom edge to the right back face here. And then I would extend this top face, this top edge, towards the left vanishing point. Okay, so I think I screwed up somewhere along the line here. I think that's more accurate. So I would need to erase all of this extra stuff where I went all wobbly and go back to the red layer. So if I were to draw this out, I kind of need to pay attention to this line right here. Where is it? Okay, so it's right here. All right, excellent. So this line is going here, so I need to extend it out towards the right vanishing point until it collides with this line right here. All right, and then I need to bring it up so that it collides with this line right here, okay? And then use the right vanishing point in order to join these two up and do it again on this far edge of the left face, all right? And so I can just go ahead and use the sketch layer to kind of clean it up a little bit. Now, of course, this box is behind one of our other boxes, so it's just a little bit harder to see, and we don't get to see this back whole portion of it down back here. But you get the idea. That's how it's done. But you know, what if you want it to be the exact same measurement, like from here to here? I've already taught extensions with 1 point perspective. The same rules apply, okay? So what you would do is you would find halfway on this bottom face, okay? And you do that by creating an X in here, and you would extend this out towards the left vanishing point, all right? And then you would draw out an extension, which is this edge and this corner. And so you would just go ahead and draw that out. And so that would be one length of distance. And then you would do it again. This, middle region to this corner, you would just go ahead and extend that out once more. And so now you have 1, 2 distances, okay? So this length that's going on right here, this is 1, okay? If this is a value of 1, I guess, then we now have 2 within this region right here, and we have 3 within this region right here. Measuring. Okay, this is like measuring the human body with head lengths. 1 head long, 2 head long, 3 head long. Okay, that sort of thing. All right. If we wanted to split this box in half, okay, it's not that hard in order to do that. Okay, so we could go ahead and do that with just an X. And so now we've just split it in half right there. If we want to split it up in fourths, we could actually use the right vanishing point in order to skewer the box in half the other direction, okay? Now, some people might consider this, okay, you've split it in fourths because there's 1 square right here, a second square right there, and 2 more here. So 1, 2, 3, 4. But I don't consider that a 1/4 measurement. Okay, a 1/4 measurement would be something more like where there's another X right here. All right, let me get rid of some of the noise on the screen with the red layer. Let's get rid of that right there. All right, so now I have an X right here, so that's split it up in another half, okay? And then we split it up right here, and now we have 1/4 measurements. So that's 1, that's 2, that's 3, that's 4. Okay, and they're equal distant sort of measurements. Okay, but let's say we want to have these measurements up top here. Okay, so what I would do in order to do that is I would just use the left vanishing point information. Okay, so I would just use my perspective lines in order to kind of get an idea as to where that would be. All right, so we've now split up the top into 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 segments. 1/4 measurements. And of course we can do the same thing over here. We can go ahead and draw out an X and use the right vanishing point in order to split this in half across the top face. And let me go ahead and, now you don't necessarily have to do what I did here where you get your 1/4 measurements with these little X's to the left and to the right of 1/2. You can just draw out another X right here. And in fact that's the most common way to do it. because when objects start to get really small off out in towards the distance, you need as much surface area in order to make your measurements sometimes. Okay, and so now I'm going to use my rightmost vanishing point in order to draw out this line. Okay, and then I draw out another X right here, and this intersection represents another 1/4 measurement. Okay, so if we wanted there to be something like some sort of object drawn out on the top of this, we can. Okay, we have the bottom face to it all drawn out, so I could actually draw out a box using the 1/4 measurements, and I'm getting really close to this horizon line right here. Okay, so we're going to see very little of this top face, but it is going to be ever so slightly just a little sliver up here. All right, so that's how I would go about drawing something that's centered on the top of another object. So just keep on practicing. Keep on practicing drawing out boxes. Draw out boxes that are in front of other boxes and behind other boxes, and just get used to the process. Anyways, guys, if you like this video, feel free to like, share, and subscribe. If you'd like to have more participation with my community, or would like to have more notifications from me, feel free to join my Twitter or join my Discord. A link to both is in the video description below. If you'd like to support this channel, feel free to click on my mascot in the upper right corner of the screen right now. It leads to my Patreon. Any support would be much appreciated. And if you've enjoyed this content, feel free to click on anything else that's appearing on the screen right now. Thank you very much for your time.